Well, I am sad. Really sad. But I'm still happy either way. It's better late than never. But anyhow, why exactly are we here? Well, this is the chronological tale. And for the first few episodes, we shall be talking about our boy, Sonic. It won't be the last time we talk about him, but it is how it starts. So, let's get on with it. You certainly know where you found yourself if you're seeing blue blurring all over the place. That specific blur being our boy, Sonic the Hedgehog. And he started out as, no, he needs no introduction here. We already know who the blue blur is and how he started out, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you get it. Besides, there are tons of reviews on him already that include all of that nitty-gritty info, so there you go. And like I've mentioned before, we're here for something a tad different anyhow. Speaking of, let's get on with it. What's the first word that comes to mind when you think about Sonic? Or at least when you were first introduced to him? Maybe you think of cool, and I'm sure that's what they wanted Sonic to come across as anyhow, especially to kids throughout Sonic's whole existence. As for me, yeah, I think of cool when I think about my first introduction to Sonic. He was one of the figures that represented that to me, but maybe not in the way that you think. And we're gonna get into what I mean and more soon enough. Sonic the Hedgehog was probably one of the first games I ever played on one of the first consoles I ever played on, that being the Sega Genesis, or at least from the most recent memories that I can recall from during that time. My first impressions would stem from Sonic 1 and Sonic 3 respectively, and will be the overall focus of today's video. And right off the bat, Sonic was already speaking my language. Even at such a young age, I knew that I was far more attracted to the sharper aesthetics as compared to the type of aesthetic that things like Barbies and Bratz gave off. They were a thing we had back then, or was mostly a thing my sister had, but why? I don't know, I just couldn't bring myself to like them. So needless to say, when Sonic came along, I was like, heck yeah! Goodbye with the Barbies, goodbye with the Bratz. This is Sonic, and he's cool, or something like that. I probably didn't outright say those words, but I knew that's how I felt. Now that I think about it, I remember playing other games on the Sega Genesis as well, and I wonder why a blue hedgehog of all things is what captured my attention the most. Their aesthetics are as sharp as you could probably get back then, at least over here in the US, and especially compared to Sonic himself, who I would think would be considered cute in comparison. But I mean, I do like superheroes, don't get me wrong. I guess I just wasn't as interested in them as my family was. I'd just rather go watch anime. Oh, is that not anime? Well, I guess that doesn't matter because the script is still moving after all, and yeah, cool is definitely what I associated Sonic with as a child. I don't know. It just came across as different from other games I played or watched my relatives play. I felt a great sense of personality coming from Sonic and his games for many different reasons, and one of those things being how Sonic played. Simply put, you start here and your goal is to end up over here, and every once in a while foil Eggman's latest plot to take you out, or if it's not Eggman, it's his creation, something else, or someone else. Not so different from how most other games around this time also played. Start on the left, get to the right, with some exceptions. You run, you jump, simple stuff, and it got the job done. But there was something different about Sonic that made him stick out from the little bunch of other games that I played at that time. Momentum physics. Speaking of momentum, of course, I didn't know what this word meant as a child, but I knew it was something different. This brought on a whole different form of play that I wasn't at all accustomed to at the time, and was a welcome challenge to learn. And not to say that other games that were similar to this didn't provide any challenge, it's just that there was a trend to how they moved, and I was getting pretty accommodated to those control styles at the time. Most of the time you're either walking or running the same speed or having the same maximum jump height, and these aspects made how your character controlled to be consistent. Hence, when I learned that, most other challenge came from outside sources. With Sonic, you have to keep all of that in mind, but also the fact that your actions aren't always going to be point-to-point consistent like the others. So this change was something for me to get used to say the least. You have full control over his actions, however, you have to keep in mind how the physics influence how you move when gaining speed or slowing down, lest you can lead yourself to some really good things, but also some not so good things when not kept in check. As a kid, no doubt all of this was something that I thought was cool. Having the ability to go fast and earning that speed was satisfying, and that did tap into another part of me that was very open to challenge. However, that specific element in video games was more prominent for me in its foundation regarding a different game series, which we will get to in a later video. And what about the main boy himself? After all, you're playing with this guy throughout the whole game, and to that, I'll say, heck yeah. I couldn't see what wasn't cool about him. When you first met eyes with him at the title screen, it's like he was saying, no, I'm not your average Joe. Bars. And just look at him in-game, his demeanor and posture. In a way, it's like you can tell what he was thinking just by him standing there. He looks determined, and even more so when he's running. And for some reason, just the fact that Sonic liked to go fast and you got to control him as such, that also made him cool to me. In a way, I feel it's hard to explain, but in a lot of our minds, I feel that we have an affinity of what fast and slow means to us. That fast somehow is equal to or greater than cool. You know, like how some movies showcase it as, or heck, Sonic makes fun of people being slower than him all the time. But you know what they say, the slowest always win the... I don't know. I feel like there's a lesson I learned that I'm forgetting about. Nope, not ringing a bell. Moving on. So yeah, the character himself was definitely presented in a cool fashion. However, I feel these games had more than just the IP to present to us in regards to that theme, and that has to do with everything else that the developers offer through these games. The visuals, level design, and the music. But these are elements that almost every game has. So why do I feel it's something special in regards to Sonic being cool specifically? It's all about what the developers had to say to us. And they had a lot to say, so to speak, and what was said definitely showed who Sonic was to them and how they wanted to go about making us experience that vision they had. And I personally believe that involves giving us an experience that encompasses more than Sonic himself, going out of their way to make us feel as though we're in Sonic's shoes by letting us know who Sonic is, what he can do, and what adventure he's on through those elements I mentioned earlier. First off, as far as who Sonic is, we learn about his I wanna go fast nature that's impressed on us, through his body language of course, but I also felt they wanted to show us this through his starting place in the first game, that being Green Hill. Sonic starts off here and at the end of his adventure in the first game comes back here, kinda giving us the impression that these hills of green are where he calls home, or at least where he has a preference to be. And that could be something we recognize and experience as we start off the game. It has these awesome loop-de-loops and other elements about it that he can pick up speed in, kind of like a huge playground to test or show off his speed. And that's something you really feel for yourself as you play and take in this colorful and cheerful environment, accompanied by the music that also gives the same vibe. Like, man, you really can do all of this fun stuff as Sonic. No wonder he likes it here. At least, I know that's how I felt. And I suppose that's what makes going on to the next stage so jarring for most people when moving on, because this experience that's taken in by the player from being here makes such a deep impression. Now I want to go fast is what we feel. Speaking of the other zones, they certainly paint different pictures, but experiences are still served with them nonetheless, each coming with different tones and ways Sonic has to get through each one, becoming more dangerous to traverse, getting further and further away from that carefree area we were once in, and delving deeper and deeper into Eggman's territory, possibly giving us that feeling of impatience in certain instances when we have to wait, feeling in a panic and learning how how to be careful when at a disadvantage due to Sonic's weakness, feeling confident in those opportunities when you're able to use what you've learned about how to gain speed, and then recognizing there's still a need for caution. And later when you feel your progress continues to be threatened by more obstacles, and the frustration for when progress actually feels like it's been thwarted, that uneasiness that comes from not knowing what the heck is about to happen, that sense of mystery that leads to understanding after what you've learned so far starts to come together, that feeling of hype that builds during the triumphant climb to do what needs to be done to put a stop to Eggman's plans, and just being able to let loose and have a bit of fun along the way because Sonic just knows how to do that stuff, and the developers making sure you feel you're not missing a single bit of that experience. Now, what I've mentioned so far did linger a bit on how Sonic the character and how he plays is cool, but the bulk of what I had to say weighed heavily on what I and possibly others felt from actually experiencing those games. Some might already understand at the very least what direction I'm going in with this, but for the sake of tying it all together, let me say this. When I say Sonic was cool, what exactly am I talking about? I'm not talking about his cool personality or how he controls. To me, it has to do with something way more important than those things. And that thing stems from these two games being the starting point of where I was first able to experience and understand what I love about gaming and what makes a game a success in my eyes. And the reason why what I'm about to talk about links to this theme that Sonic was cool to me is because the reason differs in regards to the norm of what people believe makes a good video game. Before I get into what that understanding was that I came to, let me explain what I mean by what people believe makes a good video game. Let's start with the general idea of a video game. That idea being that as an interactive form of media, a video game should be fun to play to succeed. For it to be fun to play, it should feel good to control. And I agree with that. However, the thing is that my enjoyment of a game is not exclusive to having good control.
What?
I'm sure I didn't pinpoint this when I was younger, but looking back, Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic & Knuckles with his Hedgehog 3 counterpart showed me what I found important in video games and what made a video game successful to me, and that is immersion. For those of you who would say that control is the most important thing, I'd say yes, you have a point, like I mentioned before. After all, the control is a direct link to how the player interacts with a video game. But I suppose that if every human enjoyed the same things for the same reasons, there would be no variety or difference amongst any of us. Each one of us as unique individuals are different in some way, shape, or form. So despite the fact that I agree with that idea, for me, what makes a game successful does not exclusively rely on having fun with the control, though it can definitely be a bonus when adding to my immersion. And I'll just mention one more thing before tying this all back into the blue blur. Just because a game doesn't immerse me doesn't mean I consider it to be an unsuccessful game. It's just that when I do feel immersed, my enjoyment of the overall experience is at its peak. Hence, when that happens, I personally feel it to be a success. But that doesn't take away from the games that aren't able to do that for me. For example, fighting games and racing games usually don't immerse me unless they have a decent story to carry it, but I'll still have a fun time playing them. On the flip side of that, there are times when I feel immersed, but I wouldn't necessarily say I'm having fun the entire time playing it. In this scenario, I would still consider the game to be a success unless something completely ruins it for me. And don't mind the example that I'm giving here. It's not for the reason you think, so don't take it out of context. We can't talk about everything here, okay? Or we'll be here all day, alright? Alright. But yeah, so even if a game's control is affected by bugginess or what have you, I can still enjoy myself if I feel immersed. Not that I want games to be buggy or anything. The game's control and especially the challenge do play a part for me. However, if a game can make me feel as though I'm truly experiencing what's happening, that is what will trump most other elements on the list. What can I say? I like what I like. I'm sorry if I like what are considered to be bad games. Oh wait, no I'm not. Who put that in the script? And as for how all of this ties back to the blue blur, let's take all of this and bring it back to the main theme I had going on here. Sonic was cool. And actually, when it comes to the character himself, Sonic was not someone who I was all that drawn to as a child in terms of personality. I thought him to be cool, but if anything, I was only drawn to what seemed to be his determination. It was never that strong of a pull that made me want to be Sonic as a kid when I was running around with my siblings pretending to be our favorite characters. What? We didn't have the internet, doohickeys, phones. What else were we supposed to do? Even now, especially in his more modern iterations, I just don't relate to the happy-go-lucky, full of energy, on the move most of the time type of thing. Though, as a side note, in actuality, classic Sonic is probably my third favorite iteration of Sonic. And no, not this one. All of what I feel made Sonic cool is not present here. As far as when I found him to be the most interesting and somewhat relatable was in a darker period of his history, but that's a video that's further down the chronological tale. But yeah, it wasn't his personality or how he controls, but what I feel to have embodied more than the character himself was the overall experience of Sonic. The world that he lives in, playing in it, the music, and everything else made me feel like I was there. And it all came together into a cool experience. And I believe that's what the developers wanted us to feel. Not just to look at their IP and think he was cool, but to have a cool experience through him. And I won't claim to know for sure if that's what they wanted us to feel. However, that is how I ended up feeling regardless. In regards to the IP itself, it just so happens that this face is what's associated with that experience I had. It's like I grew into having a very good respect for Sonic. I didn't necessarily identify with him all of the time, but the games that came with him and that I came to love is what linked me to his series. I became a fan who was always there to play the other games because its first impressions were such a success to me. I was on an adventure in those games. Oh, whoops, not like that. They made me feel something, and it was all thanks to starting out on a journey with these two games that I came away with such a great experience and wanted to experience more. Cause anytime I saw this face, I remembered how I felt, and I wanted to go on another journey that Sonic would take me on. And along with these two games being that starting point that taught me what I truly enjoy about this medium, on the way they also helped me to start a foundation of coming to know what other things I liked in games as well, and how I liked to play them. Things like finding secrets, my desire to complete games, enjoying a challenge, etc. Just a lot of stuff. What the heck did I just hit in that tree? Ooh, what's this giant ring? I didn't get anything, but that's okay. It was worth it. Let's go! Let's go, Eggman. You aren't ready for this. Oh, this place is so pretty. I love finding stuff here. You think I care that I have no rings? Well, think again. Oh, this place. I love it. It's so cool. What the heck is that? Get away from me. What the frick? A boing, a boing, a boing. Wait, what? This cannot be good for the environment. Oh, we just gonna hop on then? Okay, let's go. Oh, fancy. No, Dad, hitting the rocks aren't making me lose rings. So yeah, Sonic was the embodiment of cool in more ways than one. The character himself and how he played exuded coolness. But it was the cool adventure that I was able to take him on as though I was there myself that took the cake. I became a fan of experiencing Sonic. That's who Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic 3 and Knuckles is to me. It may not have cemented itself in me in the traditional way a child comes to like a series. They do tend to really like the characters and want to be like them. I guess the only thing I really took from Sonic's character was that, yeah, I want to go fast too. But the rest of what made Sonic cool to me stemmed from everything else that made Sonic's world complete in my eyes, and ultimately a success for being able to immerse me in it. A world with awesome aesthetics and awesome music, the gameplay itself with its show not tell story and how Sonic controlled in that world, and also the many other little things the developers added to give a fleshed out experience with payoffs big and small, and to make it fun too. Again, I definitely wasn't thinking about all of this as a kid, but it's neat to take a look at what I liked and why. Makes for good discussion too. We all have different experiences and memories that shaped us or taught us what we enjoy, and it started somewhere. It fascinates me so much that alongside my own little universe, every single person that exists has their own universe. It's awesome. I guess that's just another way of saying that I like to encourage discussion about this kind of thing. Who are these games to you, or who is Sonic to you in general? What game made you realize where your peak enjoyment in video games reside? Let me know in the comments. Alongside these types of videos, I also like to do self-challenges and just playing neat games that I come across, so take a look to see if any of it catches your eye, or if you're just interested in continuing to see more stuff like in today's video, let the tube know that you'd like to see my stuff so you'll be able to find them easier. Also, if you haven't noticed already, I did not say a single thing about Sonic 2. And I did touch on this in the introductory video of the chronological tale. It was something that was supposed to be done in this video, however, I started playing it and oh boy, did I have things to say. In a way, it will be presented a little differently since it's an outlier from what I actually played at that point in my life, but I'm going to try to think about who Sonic 2 might have been to me back then. At least in the best way that I can, because I have tons of hindsight now, but that is the plan. At the very least, I will talk about who Sonic 2 is to me today, but I'm still going to include it in this section of the timeline since I already kind of had the idea of doing it that way. Besides that, take care of yourself and each other. Bye.